You're listening to episode 138, recap episode, the best advice from year 4 guests. Welcome to the Grass Gets Greener podcast, the show for survivors by survivors. I'm your host, Melissa Wilson, a bullying survivor and anti-bullying advocate. And each week you'll hear from a survivor who has overcome a traumatic experience to go on to not only survive, but thrive, so that you can too, starting now. Hey there, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to this special recap episode. I'm so glad to have you here. And this is my favorite episode to do each year. So we've just reached the end of year 4 of the podcast. And what we're going to do is today you're going to hear from each of my guests from this past year. In particular, you're going to hear a recap of each of their answers to the final question I asked, which is, given what you know now, if you could go back to when you were going through your tough times and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be? Before we get into it, I do just want to mention that this episode is sponsored by Navni. Navni is the top-ranked anonymous writing website in the world. Navni provides free wellness resources and low-cost online therapy services to help people cope with various levels of emotional distress. Write anonymously, feel better at novni.com. So I'm excited to bring you this sort of compilation episode today, and I think it's a great resource to have if you're in need of some encouragement, hope, or inspiration. And if you're a new listener, first off, welcome and thank you. This is a great place to start. Listen to the clips and see which ones resonate with you, and then go check out those full episodes if you'd like, which will all be linked up on the show notes page, which you can find at thegrassgetsgreener.com/recap and the number 6, as this is the 6th recap episode overall. So I hope you're looking forward to hearing all these great answers, and you'll definitely find a mix of responses here. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one, and I'll be announcing the episode title before each response, so that you'll know who you're listening to. So here we go. Episode 119, Finding the Hope to Get Through the Aftermath of Abuse, with Jessica Emily.
Just to keep going, just to keep pushing and stay strong, because it does get better.
Episode 120, Rediscovering Your Sense of Self After Emotional Abuse, with Carol Ann Marshall.
Listen to my intuition. My intuition all along kept telling me, especially in this last relationship, do not get involved with this person. And I allowed myself to be coerced, and I lived to regret it. Because the signs were there. And that's something that we don't pay attention to. Most women, we don't pay attention to our intuition. We ignore it. And the signs were there. The little red flags were going up early on. And I ignored it. And I've lived to pay the price. So that's the main thing I said to myself. From now on, when my gut says don't do something or do something, I'll listen to my gut.
Episode 121, Update Episode, Patrick Hodges.
I would just say, don't give up. Don't give up. Things will get better. You will have a life. You will always have a loving family. And, there is greatness in you. You just have to find a way to bring it out. I would hopefully tell him, don't wait so long. Don't wait as long as I did, but it will get better. That's what I would tell him.
Episode 122, Update Episode, Eva Ursano.
And it's funny now, Melissa, because I think back now, and I don't think I would have changed a thing. I don't think there was anything that I would have changed or did different or anything like that, because everything that I went through, everything that I did, even the bad things that I did, it all just sort of lined me up and set me up for the person that I am today. And all the crazy experiences, traumatic or otherwise, all the experiences that I went through, that I've healed from, helped me to be the person that I am today, and helped me to be the person who can help other people as well. So yeah, I wouldn't have changed anything, and I can't say anything to that person.
Episode 123, Creating a New Story for Your Life Through Self-Discovery with Kelly Rolt.
I think the best advice I would have given myself is just constantly look at the good. Even in the midst of some of the bad things, you could always focus on what's right, what's good, instead of what's bad. So, again, like how I mentioned in the last part of just focusing on the gift in it all. And so I think the advice, I know it's easy to tell myself back then, oh, you're going to be fine, you're going to be great. But I think I would have just wanted to constantly remind myself, focus on the good, because it's there if you try to find it. If you constantly are focusing on the bad, you're going to find it. But just shift your perception, focus on the good, and it will help, keep that positive spirit, keep that positive outcome, so that you just continue, one day at a time, and keep focusing on the positive. And by the end, it's just going to be an incredible, amazing life if you keep focusing on the good.
Episode 124, discussing the top-ranked anonymous writing website Navni with Jack Roscoe.
For me, thinking back to when I lost my mum, I think obviously there was a lot happening at that time, and I was primarily focused on trying to think, okay, how can I kind of get rid of these bad feelings, and how and when am I going to start feeling better and normal again? Almost to the point where I was kind of, wishing the time away, wishing for time to pass until that period where things were kind of back to some version of normal. And it wasn't really until I think maybe a year or so had passed that I was kind of looking back and thinking, actually, there was a lot of great things that happened during the time when I was dealing with those feelings. Particularly in my case, after my mum died, I was spending a lot more time than I would ordinarily with friends and family. There was lots of people kind of offering their support. And it was actually really, in some ways, an amazing time, talking to people about my mum and my family and sharing stories and memories with each other, which at the time, it certainly helped me, but I was still kind of looking far in the future, thinking, how do I get to that happier zone? Whereas actually, I think in some ways, that was a time that I could have valued more, and I don't have any regrets about it. But one of those things that you look at in hindsight and you think, actually, there was a lot of great things that happened during that time period, and it brought me a lot closer to friends and family, I think, which was a very positive thing. So it wasn't all bad in that sense.
Episode 125, Reclaiming Your Story on Your Path to Healing with Laura Parrott-Perry.
Well, I think I spent so much of my life being really afraid to do the work. I was really afraid to delve into it, and I thought that I could sort of hustle my way out of it or ignore it or whatever. And I think if I had to go back and talk to a younger version of me, I would tell her that her story's not unspeakable and that she'll be okay. It will take time and it will take work, but the one thing that I tell my clients who are hesitant to do the work or talk about their abuse is this: the work is not going to be worse than the wound, and you already survived that. We get so terrified to, whether it's because we've been told not to speak or society has attached so much shame to what happened to us, but it builds up this feeling that we can't survive talking about it. And the fact of the matter is if you survive the thing, you sure as heck can survive talking about it. You know, it already happened. You already got through that part. That is the worst of it. And now it's just leaning in and doing the work. And that's the way to freedom. You know, that's the way to stop having what I call, unreliable narrators, having someone else tell your story for the rest of your life. You know, that you can survive doing the work. You absolutely can.
Episode 126, Using Your Past Experiences to Become Resilient Today with Mary Lovely.
I think that I would give myself the advice to trust myself, just to trust myself and only believe in what I know and not let anyone try to take that away. Because believing in who you are is not always easy to do. And when you have people who are being cruel and trying to define who you are, it gets very scary. And if I just had the voice inside of me saying, you got this, and just trust yourself, I think that would have been really helpful.
Episode 127, Providing Hope and Healing Through Writing and Music with Sandra Donald.
I would have walked away. The minute my instinct kicked in, I would have walked away and shut it down. That's what I would have done without hesitation. It is the only way to actually, because on all the incidences, I didn't go in full detail what happened at college, but it was similar. But I had to confront, when you confront people, everyone that I confronted, once I confronted it stopped. It just stopped. May not work for everybody, but it has to date worked for me. So that's what I would do if I was going back.
Episode 128, Recovering from Abuse to Live a Full Life with Larry Rule.
I would say to rely on your instincts. Trust them. Trust them, and they will not steer you wrong. That's what I would say.
Episode 129, Choosing the Direction of Your Life After Bullying with Michael Mapes.
I think what I would say to myself is, no one can make you quit. No one can make you give up, but you. No one else gets to say when, who you are or what your life is going to be about. And, I think I would just want to go back and say to myself, everything that you are, everything that you think you need to change, right, is someday going to be the thing that lets you build really successful businesses, that lets you travel all over the world, that lets you become a best-selling author, and, that lets you, even though I'm divorced, right, that lets you find someone who loves you and have a life that is so much more than anything that you can imagine. That's really what I would want to tell myself. When Hillary Clinton ran for president in 2008, she said, keep faith and never let anyone tell you that you can't or shouldn't go on. And I think that is the most powerful thing that I would say to anybody, wherever you are, right? And whatever you're going through, keep faith and really, truly never let anyone tell you that you can't or shouldn't go on.
Episode 130, Facing Your Past to Become Your Authentic Self with Kyle Robinson.
I would tell myself, listen, you're better off alone than being around negative people or people who don't support you or care about you. You're better off alone than finding those kind of people. So I would tell myself to find people that care about me and support me. But if you can't do that, you're better off alone than being around negative people that are not bringing value to your life or not bringing you up. So that is one of my biggest advice, because it's the power. People that support you is just an amazing thing. So it can change your life. It's changed my life, and it's just amazing.
Episode 131, Climbing Out of the Darkness to Reclaim Your Life with Suzanne Ludlam.
I would say, trust my gut. Trust my gut. If there's danger ahead and you feel it, but your mind is telling you, oh, no, it's okay. No, it's not okay. That's the interoception I'm talking about. if you've got those butterflies in your stomach when you're approaching someone or someone's approaching you, you have to listen to it. If you go to see a therapist and something just doesn't feel right, that means something's not right. Turn around and find someone else, find someone you trust. I need to throw in one more piece of advice that I would give my younger self, and that is, please don't stay isolated. There is no shame in asking for help, and there is no shame in feeling the way you're feeling. Tell someone, find someone you can trust. Say, I'm hurting. I just need a friend. Start talking about it, because when you can start talking about your pain, that's when you start healing.
Episode 132, Healing Unresolved Trauma to Take Back Your Life, with Janine Worth.
That I'm not alone. And that's something that I realize now doing this work. There are so many people that have been affected by some form of abuse. And it's not true that I can't trust anybody and that I can only rely on myself. That is this concept that I had for so long. And I realize now that that is not true at all. And that you can be normal. I thought to myself that I would never feel normal. And it's simply not true. I feel absolutely normal now.
Episode 133, Update Episode with Isabel Rizzo.
Sit with yourself. Don't run away from yourself and what you're feeling, but really sit with it, because there's some really good gold in there.
Episode 134, Empowering Yourself to Change Your Future, with Rhonda Cimarelli.
I think it would probably be just don't quit, don't give up, and don't give in.
Episode 135, Update Episode with Svava Brooks.
Well, I think it is to remember, to do your best to remember how much you are loved. Yes, we were hurt by love and didn't feel lovable. I did not feel lovable, but that I am loved. I was loved. I always was loved. And the truth is, it was closer than I realized. It was closer than I realized. And if I could have, taken down the wall sooner, I really wish that I would have taken down the wall sooner and opened my heart up to what the love that was already there. So, but I also trust that I wasn't ready for it until I was ready for it. So it's okay. I say to myself, it's okay, baby girl. You're doing a beautiful job.
Episode 136, Moving Beyond Your Past to Move into Your Future, with Matt Pappas.
It would be to, and it's funny, I've answered this question before, and I always kind of find myself pausing before I answer, because there's so many different things that I would want to tell my younger self, or tell myself back when I first went into therapy, or when I was younger in school and trying to figure out who I was and where I was going and push my past aside and all of those things. But I think it would just be to understand that what happened to you was not your fault. It doesn't define you, and you're not doomed to live a life that is defined by trauma. I think that's probably some of the things that I really wanted to be able to embrace back then, and maybe have somebody tell me that in a way that I could understand it, not in just basic therapy speak, or having some teacher tell me something, or my parents giving me a lecture or something. Explain it to me in a way that I could understand at the time, that would help me to give me some hope. I believe that I firmly could have used that. And it's hard to say whether or not I would have ever taken that to heart or not, but I think had it been presented in a way that was relatable to me at the time, I think would have probably been pretty helpful.
Episode 137, Doing Inner Work to Undo the Lessons of the Past, with Kimberly Borges.
I would say that in life, contrast. So what I mean by contrast is we have an idea of the way that we want things to be, or what we want and what we want our life to be like. And sometimes that doesn't always match up with what actually is. And so the contrast between the two. So contrast is inevitable in life. We cannot escape from that. Our life will never be perfect on a continuous basis. So contrast is inevitable, but resistance to that and suffering because of that is a choice. So learning how to, I would definitely give myself the advice to not choose suffering despite the contrast that I see in front of me in my reality, and that I have the choice to feel good in any moment, despite what's going on, or even because of what's going on outside of me and my external circumstance.
Thanks for listening to the show today. This has been the Grass Gets Greener podcast, episode 138. Go to thegrassgetsgreener.com/recap and the number 6 to find the links mentioned during this episode, or to leave a comment. So I hope you enjoyed this year's recap episode and have been inspired by some of the responses. And just as a reminder, you can find the links to all of the full episodes on the show notes page if there are some you'd like to go back and listen to. So I want to thank you for being here, and I have to thank my guests as well for being a part of this latest year of the show. The show doesn't exist without them, and it doesn't exist without you. And I'm looking forward to bringing you another year of inspiring stories, and I hope you'll tune in for that. And if you like what I'm doing here and you want to support the show, there are a few ways you could do that. If this has been helpful to you in some way, I would love it if you would take a minute to leave the show a rating and review on iTunes so that more people can find it and be helped by it as well. That would mean so much to me. Also, if you're so inclined, you can become a patron of the show at thegrassgetsgreener.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. For a contribution of your choosing each month, you can receive various perks for your support and help me keep doing what I'm doing. So I'd love it if you check that out if that interests you. And the last thing is to just please share this episode and the show with anyone who you think could benefit from listening to it. So again, thank you for your support, and it's an honor for me to do this show for you. And come back in 2 weeks for the start of year 5. And as always, have hope.